Welcome to my video. Today I decided to teach about ID versus class and which one we should choose. Um, First, this is more like a design related question, but we're going to learn a little more about what is an ID, what is a class. Let's talk about first about IDs. The ID attribute specifies a unique ID for an HTML element, and the value of the ID attribute must be unique with the HTML document. So on the bottom, as you can see, I have a little example right there. So the ID for this paragraph says hello world is unique from the span that's on the bottom that says hello world. So if in my HTML I would define each one of them separately, different names, because they cannot be used again, because it's a unique way to identify an element. Now an ID also is an attribute that is used to point to a specific style declaration in a style sheet, and is also used by JavaScript to access and manipulate the element with a specific ID. So like before, this is a way for you to uniquely identify an element that you don't want it to be affected. Now a class is an attribute that specifies one or more class names for an element. So like an example that I added there, these paragraphs, they both have the same class name, primary. One says hello world and the other one says hello world again. And this helps a lot, so you can be able to use them to get affected when we add any changes in our CSS. A class attribute is mostly used to point the class in a style sheet. However, it can also be used by JavaScript or HTML DOM to make changes in the HTML elements with specific classes. So I think it would be easier if we have an example. Here I have a CodePen, and it kind of gives us an example of what how IDs and classes work. As you can tell on the HTML side, I have two sections, and each section has a div with a number. As you can tell, the first section has an ID of example, and the second section has an ID of other example. Made each section different color, and it shows on what section is being selected. On the CSS, I added the colors, as you can see, and as well the colors for the numbers. So let's say you're working in a website, and you're trying to figure out what do you want to use, either an ID or a class. So if I would put the same name for both of them here, example, we get an expected character. So they both get wouldn't work. As you can see, I get an error right here. So like I said, an ID has to be unique. So let's put it back into place. And as you see, it goes back in place. If I wanted to, I could change this to a different color, like black. And as you can tell, the second section is not affected by it, because each one of them has an ID, a unique name to each one of them. Compared to a class, as you can see, each number has the same color, and if I change the color of it as well, it will affect each individually, each one of those, because they have the same name as a class. Now, in CSS, an ID gets a higher priority than in a class in CSS. So if I wanted to change this to class, now see how it's not the same colors. Now in CSS, the way they are represented as a hashtag is represented as an ID. So dot example is for a class, and as you can tell, it's a number here as well. It's dot number. Same with other example. If you put a dot, it's the same. So let's say I wanted to also give it an ID. Let's give it the name of other. And the same here. Other one. So if I were to choose, if I would have add another element, let's say hashtag other, see how that changes. Let's say background color, and we change it back to red. As you can tell, the other is being overwritten by the example is being overwritten by the other, because the other is an ID and it has the higher priority. Let's change back this to white. So as again, which one should we choose again to put into our code? And I think it's just a matter of choice. Honestly, a class can be used for multiple places, and you could affect multiple areas as you're changing it. As an ID, I think it works best if you're working with multiple different HTML files. For example, like the summit I had earlier, where we have the 3 different CSS. We don't want to change the different pages to be looking the same. We want to be able to just say I want one certain main to be able to change the style or color, and that's when we will use an ID. Or like we had multiple sections, we would not want to use like a class if we wanted to individually change them differently, because if you use class, it would make it to where it would be affected together all the time. So it'd be, what I would do is keep trying and give it a class or an ID, and try to experiment to see which one works better for you. And as you try it, either a class or ID, you will notice it in which situations they work better, on what on what you think you probably best if you want to give it that class or ID. Hope that this works. If you have any questions, you can leave it downstairs on the bottom and reply, and then I will answer as my best abilities. For me personally, I like to use the classes again, and IDs is when it's really necessary and it's unique, when that specific element is some kind of specific change. So hope this helps. Thank you.